good morning, everyone, and welcome to this virtual session on Healthusiasm and how to integrate it in your customer strategy in order to make your customers both healthier and happier. So, first of all, maybe some practical things, some rules of the game. Thank you for keeping yourself muted all the time. Thank you also for switching off your camera in order to keep the bandwidth under control. We have no secrets. You can screenshot whatever you want, and the webinar will also be recorded and will be shared after the presentation, after the session. And in case you have a question, please, I refer to the Q&A box. There you can post all your questions. Our moderators will keep track of it and will come back to the questions at the end of the virtual session. So maybe a first introduction on who is the House of Marketing. So we exist already for more than 25 years. And we work in marketing consulting, interim management, and we offer also trainings and coaching. We do this for both large corporates, SMEs, and startups. So you see many different logos here present in more than 12 industries. So that's a very short introduction on the House of Marketing. But now I think time to kick off the session. So the virtual session is on Healthusiasm, how to integrate it in your strategy. So I'm very happy to welcome as well some guest speakers from 3 different parties. So we have Christophe Jauquet, Renson, and SmartWithFood from Colruyt Group. So the agenda today, first of all, we'll zoom in on actually the reasons why. Why is Healthusiasm actually important? How can you make your customers feeling healthy and happy? Then we'll make it more concrete by sharing some insights, some best practices, and also some recommendations, and both from SmartWithFood and Renson, who really have practical experience, but also some experiences from other industries like the car industry, and even the entertainment industry. And then we'll make it concrete also in giving you some tips and tricks in how you can start with it yourself. So my name is Bert Van Eeckhoudt. I'm a healthcare specialist here at the House of Marketing, and I'm happy now to introduce you to our 3 guest speakers for today. So we have Ignace De Nollin, Pieter Lecluyse, and Christophe Jauquet. I would invite, first of all, maybe Ignace to introduce yourself. Maybe Ignace, I would like to ask you to say just what's your role within SmartWithFood, and maybe to add a small fun factor to it, to also share a health fact about yourself.
Yes, okay, good. Thanks, Bert. So Ignace De Nollin, so I'm responsible and started also co-founder of SmartWithFood, which is a spin-off company of Colruyt Group, where we work on helping and supporting retailers to enable food as a service for health and well-being. So, and a fact on myself about health is what for me is really key is understanding why we need to do certain actions, and then definitely in terms of food. So the literacy behind is a key element. As I'm following a quite intensive healthy program.
Okay, thank you, Christophe. Maybe then you can continue.
Thank you, Bert. So indeed, my name is Christophe Jauquet. I am the author of Healthusiasm. I call myself a health marketeer, but generally I work as a keynote speaker. I advise and inspire companies on why they should be integrating health into their strategy. And in health, fact about me is that, well, I've been doing sports and eating healthily for almost my entire life. But this past 3 months, ever since COVID, I've been practicing meditation, something I've never done before, but which is actually surprisingly changing my life. So I'm really happy in doing that, the mental health part of things.
Indeed, perfect. Thank you, Christophe. And then our 3rd guest for today, Pieter Lecluyse.
Yes, hello. I'm Pieter Lecluyse. I'm responsible for marketing for the group Renson for the region BeLux, so Belgium and Luxembourg. Renson is active in construction area, and our baseline and mission is creating healthy spaces. So we want to create a healthy indoor climate environment by combining in a smart way ventilation and sun protection. Our recent fast-growing business unit is Renson Outdoor, where we create comfortable outdoor spaces to spend your time outdoors. Fun fact on health, I love sports, but especially watching cycling and football. So,
yeah, indeed, that's nice. Thank you for sharing this already with us. I think it looks promising. So we'll move on to the rest of the virtual session. Let's call it. I don't call it a classic webinar. Why as well? Because it's also an interactive session. And we'll kick off immediately with a poll to ask your opinion. This is a very bold statement that is mentioned already several times, but every big company will become or will turn into a healthcare company. There, I would like to ask the opinion of our participants. What do you think of this statement? Okay, it's okay. The answers are coming in. Okay. Yes. Voila. Maybe we don't make it too long, but I see there's some mixed opinions about it. We have it's almost half. I think 52% says no. 48% says yes. I think there's food for thought. So I propose to dive in immediately to the content of this webinar. And I think we can kick off by asking the first question to Christophe, and that's maybe to briefly introduce Christophe on Healthusiasm. You wrote a book about it, but actually, can you explain us what is actually Healthusiasm about?
Yes, I can, of course. So Healthusiasm is the actual inspiration of people to become healthy and happy. And you might question what is so special about it, because people have been occupied with it since probably eternity. Like in the Greek ancient times, they were even praying to gods for their own health. But the thing is now that people have more access to information and tools and solutions. I mean, Ignace already mentioned it earlier. He loves the literacy. He loves to know what he needs to do as an action. And this is what people more increasingly are doing. They're no longer occupied with their health when they are sick, but they also are occupied with their health when they're actually healthy. So people find it really important to work on their health today. And you see this in the small little things that are happening around us. Look at how the gyms and fitness and exercising is really everywhere present today. You might have one at your work office. You might have one in co-working places. In hotels, you will find it. And perhaps this may sound like, a random thing. I mean, yeah, it's a gym. So what? Maybe they had some space left, of course. But no, the thing is that hotels, for example, today are chosen based on whether or not there is a gym present. And perhaps even companies might attract better employees or other employees if there is a possibility to work out in the office. And that's also why we now see airports and supermarkets or gas stations also adding actually gyms into their facilities. The same thing goes about food. I mean, restaurants, delivery services, corporate restaurants, food manufacturers, they're all focusing on health. And all these small things, they actually indicate a much bigger trend, I would say, which is radically changing society as we speak. And I think it's most visible if you look at the wellness industry, which has become about a 4.5 trillion business. And it's growing at a rate of 6-7% each year. And it's present in real estate, personal care, preventative medicine, complementary medicine, anything. So health and wellness and the way that we occupy ourselves to improve our health is really a trend that I call then Healthusiasm, the desire to live healthy and happily.
Okay, clear. What was striking to me, Christophe, is that you were mentioning many different types of industries. And so my first question is, why is actually this happening? And do you have an explanation on why is this trend of Healthusiasm observed now?
There sure is. I mean, it's because our needs are changing. And I see a slide popping up, but I think that there's another slide on the hierarchy of needs, which better explains it. The thing is that this is the Maslow pyramid as you see now. And so we have basic needs, functional needs, we have social and emotional needs. And what we've seen in our Western society is that our basic and our social needs are increasingly fulfilled. So that means that people have more resources, more time, more money to actually spend on other things. And now people are more and more investing time into their aspirational needs, their self-actualization needs. And self-actualization is a term that we don't actually use a lot in our English that we speak here in Belgium. But it's about self-improvement. People want to become the best version of themselves, and they really want to invest into that. And one way of being the best version of yourself is being as healthy and happy as possible, of course. Mm-hmm. And so companies, to answer your question, they actually followed suit. Like there was a time where it was sufficient for a company to talk about the product features. And the only thing you needed to do is saying what your product did. And that was product-driven marketing, you can say. And then later, when the needs actually evolved and emotional and social needs became more important for people, then we started co-creating. We started with customer-driven marketing. We started co-creating. We were thinking about doing market research. We really wanted to understand the emotions of our customers. Mm-hmm. Now, all of that is still valid, and you still need to focus on it. But what becomes more important is the actual inspiration of somebody. So how can you really make sure that you're speaking to the aspiration of a person? Because that person is going to buy from you whether or not you are answering his aspirational needs. And I think one of the most speaking examples, which speaks more to people actually than perhaps health today, is sustainability. You see that people are choosing brands and companies that try to be as sustainable as possible. And so that sustainability aspect is important for your customer. They will choose you based on whether or not you're sustainable because it makes them feel a better person. And the same goes for health, you can say. And that is why health is extremely important for any type of company, because you need to speak to that aspiration of your customer. And that aspiration today is living healthy and happily as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for sharing that introduction already with us, Christophe. Also, I remember the link also with sustainability, but I'm also very curious to hear thoughts from business companies. So Pieter, Ignace, maybe first Ignace, I would like to ask you what Christophe mentioned, that trend of Healthusiasm. Do you also observe it in your market?
I think I speak from SmartWithFood. So yes, I see there is an increased health consciousness. So that's really happening. But still, there is still a lot of confusion for consumers while going for grocery shopping, and on different angles. So we see, for example, on product information, not everything is very clear yet. That's something that is out there for consumers. But also there are so many different healthy lifestyles for a consumer that it's quite difficult to choose what is okay for me. Your diet, Bert, should be different than my diet. We have a different body. So and there is a lot of confusion inside the real world. So I see health is growing. It's not yet there as on the level of sustainability, which is actually not a trend anymore, but it's actually happening. It is out there. But personally, I feel that health is really getting there. So the question is when it will be there. Key in these factors is transparency and personalization. There is a question from consumers. We see at this moment, I see approximately 20 to 25% of families. They have at least one issue, one problem while going for shopping. So they need to understand what is a product, which are the recipes which are actually okay for me. And I think here, as a company or as a retailer, I would say there is a lot of opportunity to embrace these challenges. So yes, indeed, there is a trend. It's going quicker and quicker. And I think there are a lot of opportunities for groceries to embrace that.
Okay, thank you already for sharing that, Ignace. We'll come back on it later, but I'm also very curious to hear, okay, the link with food, with retail is clear, I think, but yeah, a construction company like Renson, for example. Pieter, can you also maybe explain how you see a trend moving in a construction industry?
Yes, in construction area, before or earlier, it was all about the design of the home, the building, about the facade. But now we see a trend that people are more conscious, also the architects, about indoor air quality, about indoor climate. So we see a trend that people want to go back closer to the nature and use the nature elements such as sunlight, air in a smart way to create that indoor, comfortable indoor climate. We see it's essential for people to relax, exercise, eat healthy, recharge in the best way. So, for example, get a good night's sleep, and in that way, they have to have the ideal environment to do that. And furthermore, we see also a trend that people want to spend more time outdoors. For the moment, we spend 90% of our time indoors, in the office, at home, but people want to spend more time outdoors instead of spending their time in front of their computer, their laptop, and so on. So, and outdoor living, going back to nature, has also a positive impact on the development and well-being of a person. So in that way, we can keep everyone's mental and physical health in good shape, and that's a real trend that we see in construction area. And we also involve our products in that process, but I will explain it in the upcoming topics.
Okay. No, thank you already for that introduction, Pieter. I think this opens up that there's a clear trend that is observable in several industries, but very recently we can't walk around, of course, the word COVID-19. I'm sure you heard it every week, every day, and so on. But COVID-19 also definitely has an impact on how consumers look at health. And therefore, we would like to launch a second poll question to you. And that is, do you observe an impact of COVID-19 on the needs of your target consumers? So you can, the poll can be launched. Okay, that's clear. I think the results are quite clear. 3/4 of our panelists or of the participants in the virtual session absolutely agree that there is a clear impact of COVID-19 on the needs of your consumers. 24% says no, but what's striking is that no one answered definitely not. So then I'd like to make the link with the next question. And maybe Ignace, also for you first, is COVID-19 very recently, just behind us, the lockdown and so on. How did you see, from a point of SmartWithFood, how did you observe actually the effect of COVID-19 on the needs of your customers?
Yeah, I think what we've seen quite a big impact and shift in terms of buying. So one of the elements that we see from our application is quite a lot of questions and requests on immunity boosting. People actually they get a lot of information left and right. So like I said earlier, they're a bit confused. But on the other hand, they're willing to take supplements. They're asking which supplements can I take in combination, which foods, what is the most optimal vegetables to maximize my immunity. So that's definitely one thing that we've noticed. A second element that we have noticed, maybe not directly requested from the consumer at this moment, but the last weeks it's popping up, is how as a consumer, if I got the COVID, if I went to the hospital or even not, what should I actually do with food in terms to increase my to get better sooner than foreseen. And also in the aspect of, hey, I don't have any taste anymore. What are actually some products which I can have some taste? So really to still enjoy it, because it's not only about health, it's also about being happy, like you said in the beginning. So what is actually the food that helps me to get the optimal taste? So these kind of questions, they're actually popping up. We also, like I said earlier, we've seen a change in behavior. So the shopping behavior in the beginning versus of the lockdown versus now, there was the e-commerce paradigm between hoarding and healthy eating. We worked a lot on that in SmartWithFood. So how can we help our consumers? But on the other hand, they want to be healthier. But then there was the hoarding elements, so which is a bit contradictory of eating healthy, because you put a lot in your supermarket. So that's a bit confusing, I think, and consumers were a little bit lost. I think they're now much more prepared for a next potential increase, and there's much more information out there. But again, what I said earlier, it's all about food literacy. It's about helping and supporting your consumers of understanding what is out there and how you can guide them. And that's why we launched recently also our new application from SmartWithFood, which is actually a food coach, and how can you help to coach your consumers towards this trend, using still the personalized aspect, which I'm a very strong believer, definitely in the element of food.
Okay, so I think there's a clear link that food and retail can answer a concrete need from consumers, regarding health. But then, Pieter, I'm coming back to you again. I think you can continue your story now on how does it happen in the construction industry? How do people, and did you see, for example, also a concrete link with COVID-19 in the choices that people make regarding their way of living?
Yes, indeed. Well, first of all, we see a trend, an overall trend, that people who have to spend their time at home, they want to invest in making their life at home more comfortable, indoor as well, outdoor. For example, for our business unit, Outdoor Living, who manufactures terrace covers and outdoor elements, May and June have been the best months ever for so far. So also we see that people become more conscious about indoor air quality due to COVID. Effective ventilation is currently a hot topic for the moment. And for example, in September, we will launch a new product which can measure the indoor air quality in your home, and where we also will give insights to the consumer on the average indoor quality of other homes, so they can compare their indoor quality with other people. And in that way, Renson will also use that product to do suggestions to the end clients, how they can improve the quality of the indoor air and also the temperature in their home. So we will use it also as a tool to do upselling.
Okay, so indeed, sounds interesting. Then maybe Christophe, to come back to you, what is your comment on this? From observing all these different industries, how do you look at it? And do you also recognize the stories of Ignace and Pieter also in needs of consumers in the research that you've done?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we all know health to ourselves is very important. It's also important for our friends, and that's why actually we say at the beginning of the new year, I wish you a healthy and happy new year. So it's always been important. But what we've seen now with COVID-19 is that health has become really our biggest preoccupation, maybe even beyond anything we've ever seen. And indeed, sustainability has been around for a while and has become a basic, but our concerns are even bigger regarding our own health. And so I see three basic trends now happening. One is we go back to safeness. One of our biggest needs is actually safeness. It was already explained by both Pieter and Ignace. Is that we want to know about the safeness of our food, and we really want to know about the safeness of our indoor quality air, of the air quality in our houses. So the safeness is one part, and the second part that I've seen change a lot is the need for togetherness. We've been locked down in our houses. Perhaps our emotional and social needs have been tested, let's say. And so we really are looking for this kind of togetherness. And then finally, the third one, which is to me perhaps not surprising, but I was very curious to see, is the increased focus on wellness. People were already very much focused on wellness in general. But what we've seen during COVID is that actually 40% of people, according to research done by Ghent, University of Ghent, 40% of people are actually eating healthier, and only 25% are saying that they are eating less healthy. And we've all seen people walking around, moving. The Corona walks is one of the words for 2020, if you ask me. But also start to run. I talked with somebody at Energy Lab, and they told me that the activities were 3 times as high during the lockdown as they were before, or in any other periods before that. So we really see this huge evolution. And even the alcohol industry, I think I read an article yesterday saying that the alcohol industry will never reach its point of prior to the COVID industry, and at least not before 2024. So it will take 3 years to restore the same level as they had before COVID-19. So wellness and as Ignace mentioned, having this immunity to fight the virus has become even more important than it was before. This is what I've noticed.
Okay, indeed. I'm sure that many of the attendees will also confirm that maybe their behavior also changed during the lockdown period, or during COVID at least, changing indeed foods, changing to the ways you move and so on. But I'm also curious to see how actually companies can act on these changing needs. Because, for example, does it exist? Do companies have a specific approach towards their customers, regarding health in playing on their customer experience? For example, we all know the story of going to the supermarket changed during the lockdown period in terms of safety measures and so on. But how do you look at it from a more general point of view, and also to a post-lockdown period? So maybe I'd like to ask Pieter first to see how do you actually observe changes in customer experience that you will be offering to your customers in the near future?
Yeah, well, in the near so far we have sold our products, but so ventilation systems, solar screens, and so on. But in the future, we will not focus on selling these products, but rather than we will sell a guarantee of good indoor quality, or a guarantee of good indoor climate. And which product will be needed, that will be less important, but we want to guarantee that indoor quality. So focus will be on the results and the satisfaction of the end customer. So that's the main focus in our business units and in our product ranges. we're not so far that we are already on that level, but we're working on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, and does it also affect, for example, the development of new type of products, or is it more in the communication part? What do you observe actually?
Both. In where we earlier we developed our product by good common sense. So what we thought was good. Now we really focus on service with end customers, what's important for all stakeholders, and then then we proceed with in our communication. We should also adapt that message.
Okay, okay, and Ignace, maybe then to continue with you, how do you look at changes in customer experience from a customer point of view?
I think there are a couple of elements. As a retailer, you need to adapt yourself and offer the full customer journey to your clients. I think that's a key one. And the principles that we embrace and that we see, which are really key within the health and well-being area, it's about first transparency. I think it all starts with transparency. Is all the information there? Is it clear for me? Do I understand it easily as a consumer? Imagine if you're going for grocery shopping, you only look 2 seconds at a certain product, and you have to make the right choice at that moment. You can have one element in mind, but maybe 2 or 3 elements, but not more. So it needs to be very convenient, and that's the second pillar, which is really key: convenience. And then the third one, which we discussed quite a lot today already, is personalization. That would be starting with segmentation, but then ideally within the long-term future, it's about deep personalization, where you could potentially link your microbiome, your DNA with your profile, and have the optimal food experience, which is the best restaurant, which is the best menu, meal planning, and stuff like this. But that's the long future. So I think there are still a couple of steps to go. But this is actually the expectations more and more of consumers to have these 3 elements. And what I think as within my area, food retail, which is a responsibility of a retailer, is not only offering these 3 principles and services that can enable these principles, but also really have your moral duty of helping a consumer in their behavioral change. You're actually asking for that. You can offer tools and solutions and services. It's great, but make them so good that they fit in the entire customer journey, and that you actually help your consumer to change the behavior. And we did a project in the past where we used the buying history, the receipts of the individuals, and then link this to a specific diet. And we used the food triangle in Belgium, just to keep them informed of how well they're actually doing compared to the food triangle. And the response was amazing. Of people are actually seeing, I'm eating so much red meat, am I eating so few vegetables and fruits? And then as a retailer, you could benefit, but you can help your consumer of offering the right triggers, like the suggestions in terms of menus, which are the best products, promotions specifically for you, really going through that personalization. So I think yes, but another important point within this area is don't do this alone. I think creating partnerships or an ecosystem is really key of doing this, because every company has its own métier, I would say, but do this with partners, do this with experts, do this in an ecosystem where you can reinforce yourself as different companies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I think what I liked in your answer, Ignace, is also the role, the responsibility. You see the responsibility of a retailer, of a company, to play a role in this, to more the holistic societal responsibility, which again confirms, I think, the link with sustainability, but also the concrete example you gave about how SmartWithFood as a retailer also took up the guiding role and to help customers in giving them concrete advice in what they could do. And I think and there maybe I'll come back to you, Christophe, that there's plenty of opportunities for companies in acting on what we call here Healthusiasm, in acting on consumer needs, in playing a role in guiding them and assisting them in reaching a more healthy and happy life. Can you, Christophe?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I like the examples by Pieter and Ignace again. I think what it shows, I mean, we were talking about health ever since COVID-19, and everybody thinks that that each company should be focusing on the safety aspect. Yeah. But they forget about the wellness aspect and how much people actually want to live as healthy and happy as possible. And both of the examples that we heard here today were about reassuring the indoor quality of the air, guiding people into making the best choices for themselves. And what those things do is, if they are well executed, they actually transform a person. And so what I've been crying for the past 2 years is saying that customer experience, general customer experience, is just no longer enough. I mean, we are all the products and services and experiences that we have are very convenient, and you won't, as a company, differentiate anymore if you focus on customer experience. Mm-hmm. The thing is, now you need to be focusing on customer transformation, by which I mean add or create a experience that is that personal, as was mentioned also by Ignace. Create an experience that is that personal, that person actually feels changed, that he feels transformed by it. And I think health is a very good way to actually making people, your customers, feel transformed. And there's lots of examples. I mean, I think one of the most lovely examples is Mercedes-Benz. I always use this example as saying, like, Mercedes-Benz to me is one of the most promising healthcare companies in the world. So I repeat myself, most promising healthcare companies in the world, because their ambition, they have a medical director since forever in their board of directors, and their ambition is actually to make drivers more healthy. So they've created a car about 3 years ago that actually integrates all sorts of wearables, but also looks at your agenda, the traffic, etc. And their ambition is that instead of coming out of your car after 3-hour driving and being totally exhausted, what Mercedes-Benz actually wants to achieve is they want to get people feel healthy when they leave their car. And the same can be said about Netflix, who's basically known for binge watching, but they now have the small little devices that can help people move again. Because if you've watched 2 or 3 series in a row, then you get prompted, at least your Netflix will freeze and say, oh, wait a minute, you need to move for half an hour before you can watch your next episode. Even IKEA, also in the construction area, is really focusing increasingly on health. They have now the air purifying curtain since about a month or so. But also their entire experience or shopping experience has changed into a form, in certain countries at least, that actually makes people feel better when they are shopping, that is not so exhausting anymore. So it's really about customer transformations and less about customer experience, general customer experience. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for sharing that, Christophe. I think what is most striking to me is that the number of industries you're naming. Indeed, Mercedes-Benz, you would not expect them to have the ambition to become a health company on the longer term, or that they're really working on that. So I think that's really something that triggers people, I think, to start working on it. So looking at the timing, maybe I think, Christophe, I would maybe invite you to, as the author of Healthusiasm, to give us a short wrap-up of what is, according to you, the key takeaway of this whole story, of this discussion we just had.
And so there's 2 aspects, I guess. One aspect is has to do with aspirations. People aspire really to become as healthy and happy as possible, because they're so much occupied with their health, and it's been now since a couple of months our biggest preoccupation ever. So the aspiration of becoming healthy and happy has never been bigger. And so as a company, what you can do is, instead of looking at your customer journey and the touch points within your customer journey, really looking at what is important in your customer's life, which is also exactly what Pieter is doing now with Renson, is that they guarantee indoor quality, for example. That is important in customers' life. It's not just about the touch points. And the second point is related to transformations, as I just explained. It's no longer enough just to create customer experiences. It's very important and increasingly important to focus on customer transformations, because that will change, that will make your customers feel better, which is actually what they want. And so the cross section between those two areas is, I believe, the two things that each and every company should be focusing on as from today, if not already yesterday. That would be my point of view.
Yeah. So what I heard here is actually time for action now. Time to start.
That would be my suggestion for sure. Yes.
Yeah, of course. Okay. I think maybe a short wrap up also from my side is, time for action. I think during this webinar, we try to inspire you, to trigger you that Healthusiasm is really something that can offer opportunities to every type of companies, every type of industry as well. So in case you think, okay, I don't know really where to start, it seems still quite abstract for me on what it could mean for my industry. Of course, do not hesitate. The contact details will be shared later on in the presentation. But you can reach out to us to have a one-to-one discussion on what Healthusiasm could mean for you, for your industry. So now I would like, because we received some questions in the Q&A, in the chat. So now I would like to pick up some of the questions and ask them to our three guest speakers. So we still have some time for that. I think the first question I see here is a question from Katrien, and that is a concrete question for you, Pieter, and it is linked to the shift in construction. She asks, isn't it actually also pushed by government regulations? Because in construction, why do people do they do it for climate reasons or for health reasons? And what is actually the biggest trigger here? Is it climate or is it health? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, Pieter.
Well, I think it's both of them. For example, insulation is pushed for the climate. But if you insulate your home properly, you need to ensure that your home breathes, so that you still have a good indoor quality. So the government is also aware about the health reason. That's why they push insulation of homes. But next to that, they also promote the ventilation systems and good indoor quality. So it's pushed by the government because it's necessary. Living in a home that's not healthy, that has a bad indoor quality, affects also the health of the people who live in those homes. That's why it's important that they trigger it also to the end consumers. Mm-hmm. So it's pushed by the government indeed, but the reasons are not only because of climate.
Now, if I may add to that, I think there's two things I want to add. One is I've read several studies and they're written in my book as well. Is that indoor quality or the air inside our houses is often worse than outside. Yeah. So that's a huge need. And the second thing is that climate and health very often simply overlap. Because if you do good for the climate, it has a positive impact on your own health as well. So it's not an or story very often. It's very often just and, because the positive impact on climate has a positive impact on health as well. So it's certainly both. Yeah.
Okay. I see also a question for you, Ignace, from one of our attendees, and it's regarding the COVID. It triggered something, and people are very conscious about their health. They are maybe also a bit scared regarding other potential viruses that could enter our country or habit. And maybe some people also believe, yeah, okay, there's a clear link with food, that some food habits might cause, might have an effect on their immunity, on how they feel, might trigger also new viruses, for example. Do you also is it also something that you notice, Ignace, based on the research you do, based on the data that you collect of your customers? Do you also notice some consciousness regarding that, or some fear regarding that?
But I think there is definitely an increased conscious about the elements in terms of how healthy am I, and what should I do in terms of boosting my immunity and elements like this. If I read the question just here in front of me, I'm not sure if, because part of the question is, was the COVID period long enough? I don't think this is linked with it. Well, we could have temporarily a boost on this, but I think it's more like the big shift that's already happening. And like I said earlier, I think sustainability, for example, it's there already. It's not a trend. Food, yes, it's coming very fast. On the other hand, price is still the main determining factor for going for grocery shopping, for example. And this will not change immediately. But there, I think as a retailer, you can enable certain services where you can include price as one of the elements. So what is actually the healthy food that matches my profile? And profile is not only the health profile, it's my entire profile. Am I somebody that is looking at my budget? Am I somebody who is planning a lot, going one time a day to a grocery store every evening, for example, or is it once in every 2 weeks? So all of these elements, it's part of your profile. But yeah, lots of things are happening. I just had a call before here, before this meeting, where there's a company launching a huge DNA testing kit and provides food advice. That's a very small minority, of course, but these things are actually happening and starting to help the convenience towards health.
Okay. Maybe a question that is a bit linked to that, Ignace, is: do you also observe that consumers take into account the fact that the products they are buying were produced in like hygienic circumstances, and that the factories where the products, where the nutrition was produced, that they also take into account the healthy circumstances there in the production process? Like it happens in restaurants, in bars, it's very visible now. Do consumers also take it into account when doing their groceries?
But I don't have any specific indications of myself now in terms of during the last 3 months. I can imagine, yes, it increased, but I know it is a fact that they're looking at this point, where does the product coming from? What journey does the product actually made? And of course, in what circumstances the product has been developed in terms of health, but also in terms of ethical parameters. So yes, it's becoming more and more important, and that's what I'm telling earlier about transparency. So they expect the full transparency of the journey. That's why you also see the elements like blockchain transparency in the entire food chain. These activities, retailers are working on it very intensively to provide all the information. So different companies are actually working in there. It's with IT, IBM is working on this. Retailers are working on this. So because of this question of the consumer, give me the entire transparency of this product. Yes.
And to pick in on that, I think transparency has to do with information. And there's one general rule about health, and that is there's never enough information about health. So you, as any type of brand, whether you're a food maker or whether you're working around indoor climates or whatever, I mean, you are the specialist of your product, your service, and you should be able to inform your customer about the health aspects of your product. That is really what is being asked, because there's no such thing as too much information related to our health. And this is the first and the very first thing that each and every company can do related to Healthusiasm is put out some information, be transparent, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I see another question, and I think I want to direct it to you, Christophe, is more a trend of the last years is also that we see an increasing usage or an increasing interest in the sharing economy, sharing cars, sharing vehicles and bikes and so on. How do you link it? Are we moving from ownership to more renting things and tools? How do you integrate actually both concepts? Meaning like the need for safety, the need for security, the need for wellness, but how do you link it to the sharing economy?
Well, I think it's no different than with any other industry in a sense that if you need it on a permanent basis, which for certain tools and information and solutions, it might be the case, then you might want to buy it. If it is more related to just a temporary use, then the sharing economy can do a lot of things. I think there's just to show you a couple of cases how it really helps with Healthusiasm or how it already exists today is, you might have heard about the startup in Belgium. I mean, it's almost a scale up now, Helper, which actually is a sort of, I would say it's a Tinder for helping elderly people in your neighborhoods. So you can actually earn, I think, I'm not 100% sure, about €9 an hour or so if you help the old person who lives very close to you. As that's a form of sharing that they do. They share the services that otherwise are being brought by nurses. But then I also written down like sharing a cow, for example, because we are afraid of food and the quality of our food because it's not always transparently communicated. And so one of the big things that is growing ever since COVID is sharing a cow with a couple of people. So you buy a cow and for 3 months, you have like 1/6 of a cow and you can store your entire fridge with the meat from it. But also other devices can of course be shared in similar ways, or even vegetable boxes are shared amongst communities, etc. So it certainly fits perfectly if the actual needs is acute and temporarily, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. I think, and that's a question I would like to address to Pieter first, is we talked about Healthusiasm in this webinar. We also had sustainability. I think there's a very, very clear link with construction also and sustainability. Do you see it as two separate journeys? Like, okay, we need to develop a sustainability strategy and a health strategy, or do you see like they're constantly interacting with each other? How do you observe it? Is it a split story or is it something that comes together?
In construction area and in our business, it's something that comes together. People who are conscious about their health are also conscious about the products that they buy, and they want to have the certitude that they buy sustainable products. Most of our products are also made out of aluminium. Which is a product that can be used several times in different type of products. So it's recyclable. And the energy consumption is also a thing that is very important in our business. So we can develop healthy products or products that improve your health, but we have to assure that they are also sustainable.
Okay. Maybe one last question to wrap up is it's quite a long one, so I try to summarize it. It's a question from Barbara, who says, who states that preventive health, and it's a question I think more related to Ignace and Christophe, who states that preventive health, according to her, she has the impression that it's still reaching a minority interest within the consumer base. Do you think actually, our question is, do you think that the COVID period was long enough to make people really conscious about the definite aspects of switching towards a durable practice of healthier eating? Or is it just something that was like a temporary need, like, okay, we need to survive the COVID period, we need to boost our immunity, and then it will drop again? Do you think it's sustainable, that trend. So maybe Ignace, a question that you can answer first.
Yeah, like I said earlier, because I was partly answering that question, but I think the trend already was created. I think this COVID period could definitely or created a boost. It's difficult to say if this is the trigger to continue or to stay at the same pace, or this new pace. I think for certain people, yes. But yeah, it's hard to say that this is the one that makes it really happening. But I think certain elements, like we had some discussions with healthy aging, for example. This is for me, I think the COVID is really enabling that one, because people that were more in the risking area, that really makes it conscious. On the other hand, well, from a perspective that I got feedback from some retailers, and the way people are actually buying, it changes back to the old habits quite fast as well. So yes and no. So it's difficult to say, but there is something happening, but I don't think it's the trend will continue in that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, indeed. Just looking at the time, Ignace, thank you for indeed adding a bit more information on that question. But I would like to wrap up now. So first of all, I would like to ask all the participants for your participation. I think, as I mentioned already, in case you would like to know, okay, how can we start with implementing Healthusiasm for our industry? If you'd like to have a chat about it, please reach out to me, connect with us on LinkedIn, and then we can have a chat. I would like to ask also to thank really sincerely Pieter Lecluyse, Christophe Jauquet, and Ignace De Nollin really for making time for this webinar, for sharing your thoughts, your practices. I think it was really interesting, and I see that many people appreciated it. So to all participants, one last question, and that is that we launch a short survey. It's accessible in the chat now, so there you can share your feedback with us regarding this webinar. I can also inform you that this webinar was entirely recorded. In case you missed it or you think it's very interesting for one of my colleagues or a connection of me, you will be able to share it, so you will receive an email with the recording of this webinar. So I would like to thank all of you for your time, your interest, and I would say enjoy a healthy lunch now, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.